It is by destruction that a new creation becomes possible. So it is a kind of an act of a dance that destruction and new creation goes on constantly. Now, on one occasion, Shiva had visited the mother, that you know perhaps, you see. All these gods used to go and visit the mother. On one occasion, Shiva, so she gave him a red flower, that is the flower which he loves it very much, you see. So she gave him a red flower and all that. And then she asked him, would you like to take birth? Yes, she asked him. And Shiva told him, I'm sorry, I don't want to take birth here. I will take birth when the supermind descends. When the supermind descends, you see, I will take birth. Because in that sense, I think we are doing a great thing. We have accepted the mortal birth, the mortal anguish, mortal suffering, passing through death constantly. It is only because of that the progress is there. In the typal verse, these gods remain fixed, static, stationary. They don't progress at all. They remain as they are. If you want to make progress, you have to take birth here. Mother had offered the same thing to Durga. She says, I'm sorry. Yeah. Who will take the trouble of all these things, you see? And she was, of course, admiring all the while these little things the mother was doing. And she said, look, it is because I got a psychic being. You don't have a psychic being. So how can you understand these small little joys, beautiful things in this creation here? You don't have that psychic being. You can't understand that. She wanted but to know. But Krishna had a, yeah, of course, yeah, that's right, yeah. He used to walk with her on the terrace. Yeah. But Krishna is a slightly different kind of a person, in the sense that these are archetypal gods. Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Indra, they are all gods, archetypal. The Puranic gods are in the overmind plane. The Vedic gods, Agni, Indra, they are in the transcendental planes. But they are frozen in their powers and capacities. There is no progress as such. Each has a function, beautiful function, all that thing, role to play, but there is no progress as such there. They had to come here if they want to make birth. That is why earth is important. And we have opted to take birth, in spite of all this suffering and death and misery and killing each other and all that. Well, still, we are perhaps more adventurous in that sense, you see. It's good that way, that we can make progress, you see. And it is in that context you can see the real greatness of the avatar. All that is there, he keeps aside and takes the mortal birth, so that the progress becomes possible. That is the greatness of the divine Shakti, of Savitri, of the mother. She comes here to carry on the evolution forward. She comes here to take the evolution forward constantly. She condescends to pass through the portals of the birth, that is the death. She agrees, pass the portals of birth, that is the death. And she comes here constantly, all along. Now that is the greatness of the avatar. He comes here, identifies himself, takes all the human difficulties on him. Yet, he keeps his divinity intact with him. The touch with the divine is not lost in him. The veil is thick. Something is there, which keeps the contact with that, and it is that which carries the things forward. Therefore, here we got Shiva, a matted forested, invaded heaven, as if a blue-throated ascetic peered from the stone fastness of his mountain cell. See, stone fastness, the heart physical, it is there when it is lost. Regarding the brief gladness of the days, his vast extended spirit couched behind. A mighty murmur of immense retreat besieged the ear. So while the whole landscape is there, small little breeze is there, or some stream is there flowing, rivulet is flowing there, and that little murmur is there. It is that which one hears in that retreat. A sad and limitless call as of a soul retiring from the world. It looked as if you are not happy with this place and you would like to retire, you go back from here. This was the scene, the whole landscape, the whole distant place. Now he's kind of summarizing. This was the scene. Why sad? In a certain sense sad, because, well, the lovers are going to meet here, but, well, the death is also going to occur here. By necessity, by the very nature of things, Satyavan is accompanied, has to be accompanied by death. It is inescapable. The shadow of death is always there with Satyavan. That cannot go away. By the very nature of things, the shadow of death is always there with things, and therefore there is a kind of a sadness. Yes, this is meeting place. They are going to meet here in this lovely place, but the shadow of death is also there present. Earth and love and doom, born of inconscience. That is what we have got in the very first canto. Earth and love and doom, born of inconscience. Because they are born of inconscience, love has to suffer. Love has to be accompanied inevitably by death. That is in the very nature of things. And all that has to happen on earth. It has to all happen on earth. So this is the ambiguous scene made by the creator, of whom she will call, here of course the mother. Ambiguous, poor lady, she does not know what is going to happen. It is not in her hands. It is not in her capacity to decide what will happen. Yes, the lovers will meet. Yes, by the very nature of things, shadow will accompany love. It is inescapable. But what is going to happen, that the ambiguous mother unable to know, unable to see what is going to happen. It is only when Savitri does yoga, then to that extent that knowledge could go to this mother. Until then she remains ambiguous. She is simply laying the field open for action. This was the scene which the ambiguous mother had chosen for her brief felicitous hour. Brief in the eternity of time is a small moment. Here in the solitude far from the world, her part she began, and there was joy and strife. This ambiguous mother is participating now. Until now there was nothing happening. But she is going to participate now here. Here were disclosed to her the mystic course, the lurking doors of beauty and surprise. She starts seeing them, the mystic doors of beauty, of joy, of happiness. The vein that murmur in the golden house, the temple of sweetness and the fiery isle. This is the temple of sweetness and the fiery isle where things will happen here. Here were disclosed to her the mystic codes. See, this is the scene where the lovers are going to meet. The courtyard is there, full of love and beauty and joy. And it's a golden house, happy things. The temple of sweetness and the fiery isle. Temple of sweetness. So this whole place is a temple now where the lovers are going to unite. In fact, Savitri herself is a perfect shrine for the God of love. Perfect shrine for the God of love. And this place is also equally beautiful, perfect, sweet in all its essence. The temple of sweetness and the fiery isle. A stranger on the sorrowful roads of time. Immortal under the yoke of death and fate. A sacrificant to the bliss and pain of the spheres. Love in the wilderness met Savitri. Now, the poet is already preparing to narrate what is going to happen in next canto. Love is going to meet Savitri. This is already a kind of an advance indication. Look, it is here in the destined place. Savitri is going to meet love. Now this love, he will of course name later on as Satyavan. He is a stranger on his sorrowful roads of time. This is important. He is a stranger. He is the divine himself who has taken this position in the inconscience. In the inconscience. That is the metaphysical aspect of it. In the immediate story context, Satyavan is a stranger to sorrow. He does not know this 25-year-old boy. He does not know that tomorrow he is going to die. He is a stranger, obviously. Stranger on the sorrowful roads of time. The poet knows it, but he does not know. So this is a road where they are going to meet, and obviously it is going to be a sorrowful road in that context. A mortal under the yoke of death and fate. Now this is a different context now again. Now this stranger is not to that particular physical person, Satyavan, in the story. He is the avatar himself who has taken his position here in this sorrowful world, in this world of misery. He has taken that position in this world of misery. A stranger on the sorrowful roads of time, immortal, he is of course immortal, yet he is under the yoke of death. He is subject to fate because he has taken that position. He is born of inconscience. A sacrificant, he has sacrificed all his joy, happiness, royalty, whatever majesty, Aishwarya, as we would say, he has sacrificed everything and come down here in the sphere of pain, in this world of pain. Love in the wilderness met Savitri. The poet is telling you in advance that look, here, this is the destined place. It is here, Satyavan is going to meet Savitri. Sacrificant, because he has sacrificed himself. Now this is a little complex line in many ways, and it can be twisted also. If you see the last line alone, love met Savitri. That is the main context of the whole sentence. Love met Savitri. Now, there are a couple of problems here. And we can be clever about these problems. The first problem is, it is Savitri who had been traveling from place to place for 1 year. and it is she who has to meet her lover. It is she who must meet her lover. But here the line says it is love who meets Savitri. So that is a little problem there in that sense. That is one aspect. The other aspect is purely from the point of view of English. Take this phrase alone, love met Savitri. I can read that thing differently. Love met Savitri. Or love met Savitri. Love met Savitri. That is perfectly English. Love met Savitri. It depends upon how you want to see it. No, we can. Love met Savitri. Love met Savitri. Love met Savitri, yes. No, no, they is not same. Whether it is love who is meeting Savitri or Savitri is meeting love. That's the beauty of it, you see. That's the beauty of poet's language. He is keeping, of course, the context is very clear in the sentence, but if you take this phrase alone, love met Savitri, I mean, I can always argue it is Savitri who was searching for a lover. So it is Savitri who should meet love. Because she has been going around for 1 year. No, but he is coming abruptly here. Well, that is the question. You see, in fact, I will say this is a kind of a Delphic oracle utterance. Yeah. It is Greeks defeat Persians. That was the oracle. Greeks defeat Persians. She says Greeks defeat Persians. Now, Greeks defeat Persians or Greeks defeat Persians. So it can.
But since when has love
See, that is the thing. In the case of Darius war, this is what happened. So who is going to defeat? Persians are going to defeat the Greeks, or the Greeks are going to defeat? Same thing here. Same thing here.
the same structure of sentence?
Sentence. You simply see, again ponder on that. Love met Savitri. Love met Savitri. You give a little pause here and pause there. See, the difference is clear. And the next sentence clearly tells you where is that gone? All she remembered on the day of fate, she, you see, is catching the thread once more. The very first sentence of the next. Okay, I think we'll stop with that.